Worldwide sensation. Like everybody in the world, every Muslim knew about you. So what happened there? How did this campaign start? How did you get on every news story, billboard, everyone talking about you and your search for marriage?
So what's really interesting is even till this day, people haven't clocked that it was just an advert. Just an advert. And then, I worked with various brands, Muslim brands as a model. And it's just a modeling gig essentially. Although it has truth, of course, I was a singleton looking, but this was a modeling gig essentially. So it got started by, working with a particular brand, Muslim matrimonial company, and then kind of doing modeling for them essentially. And then this was a modeling gig that went
a Muzz match, right? Muzz?
Exactly. Yeah.
Did they pay you for this?
Well, that's between us. That's between us. Yeah, exactly.
And in terms of like how that campaign was run, did they approach you through your brand?
Yes, I mean it was essentially worked with them before on modeling campaigns, and then one of the ones that was kind of floated to me was, you know what, we've got this incredible idea. Are you down? I'm like, man, I'm down.
How do you build this brand? You've got this unique. How many hats have you got like that?
Man, I've got loads. My mum tells me off sometimes. She's like, look, you got a topi for every occasion. Yeah. Plus you got one to go to sleep. Like, what's going on here? Yeah. So I've got loads of hats. This in particular, a lot of brothers ask me because it's quite, salah friendly. Yeah. Almost looks like a salah topi, but it's called a docker cap for anyone that's interested. That asks me randomly.
I'm not getting one of those.
Yeah. Nah.
So tell me, when this went viral, how many sisters approached you?
Wow, man. So digitally speaking, right, there was a flood of DMs. And then also what was interesting, the page that was set up by Muzz, I mean, they reported to have thousands and thousands on there. Yeah. And it was interesting. I would almost see this trail of virality go from one country to another based on a certain kind of, demographic, then, publishing this in their respective countries. So I would see Tanzania blow up and loads of Tanzanian women message, and then Iran blow up, and then Iran, like,
so you could have got an Iranian wife or a Tanzanian wife.
That would have been incredible. Tanzanian food, Iranian, what do you call it? What's it called? The Kabuli palau and all that type of stuff. I love that, man.
Tanzania or Afghanistan? What are you talking about?
Sorry, no, when it comes to Iranian food, you got your
Iranian
palau,
food.
Love that.
So in terms of those DMs, what kind of DMs were you getting?
It's interesting. I think that for the majority of the times I was perceived to be a British passport, essentially.
Really?
for a lot of women.
Okay, so what was the percentage of British sisters and versus like the rest of the world?
Roughly, top of my head, I would say 75% were international. Oh, we're talking about non-Anglosphere.
And why are you accusing them of being British passport seekers?
Interesting. I would say that, and I say that kind of light-heartedly, but there is a big demographic of women who, rightly so, kind of want to seek a better life. Yeah. And they are, mashallah, maybe a lot of them are in their prime, and through kind of seeking a husband in the Anglosphere, they may open themselves to a better life. So would you have married somebody from one of those countries, or do you think that it wouldn't work because maybe they want the financial gain? Or how can you judge that? Interesting, very, very interesting debate. So there's this movement called the Passport Bros movement now.
Passport Bros.
You can check it up online. It started off in America, particularly African American influencers, talking about how women in America are essentially aggressive, they're dominant, they've got this masculine energy
thing,
exactly. And what they found going to Hispanic countries, Latin America, even Africa, are women who are far more within their feminine energy, and they're getting a much better deal by going abroad. So this whole, I think it's a way up, right? And generally speaking, I know there's sisters, mashallah ta'ala, alhamdulillah, I'm married to one sister who's, mashallah, we got family, I've got family over here, and I've got friends and family who are, very submissive, feminine type of women, but largely speaking, you've got a more kind of, domineering personalities over here, generally speaking now. And I know I might be on the fire for this.
No, it's fine.
But then in these countries, you don't have that much of a kind of career capitalist motivation. All these kind of individualism, all these isms and schisms haven't crept into society. And by and large, they're more in touch with their general kind of, these roles, like these kind of gender roles, essentially. So it's a toss up, basically.
I know a lot of brothers who tried to get married in the UK. Tried every way, haram way, halal way. At the end, they went back home and found a wife. But the other caveat is that sometimes they think that's going to be like a Bollywood film. The wife's going to have her hair out here with bangles on and a tray of food. And it doesn't work like that. She's also after the passport and the career, because every woman now wants that career as well.
Exactly.
So it's not that theory. In theory, it can work both ways.
My insight, I've gathered various insights through DMs, conversations, and seeing things. And I work with probably all of the brands over here in the UK. I would say, generally speaking, this is my like cutting to the chase. Yeah, this is my one-liner. If you are a good brother, right, a traditional, masculine man, whatever that means to you, who's a practicing brother. You would find the best sisters to be hiding behind their maharim, hiding behind their brother, the wali, the father, whoever that is, and that is your go-to essentially. And it's another conversation. So you're saying those
that go through the family
exactly
are a better option?
You're more likely to find a woman who is in her feminine frame, adhering to Islamic principles, and particularly the wali principle, which I keep shouting about, which is essentially that, la nikah bighayri wali. There's no nikah without the wali.
Okay.
And the importance of the wali, the chaperone, as we would translate it into English, is really overlooked, I think, by the large part of people that I know. And I love and I respect, mashallah ta'ala, my sisters. I work with them. Those are in corporate race, but they often make the mistake of going about the marriage seeking by themselves.
Yeah, but let me flip this on you, bro, because
of course
if the sisters are talking to guys, right, without their brothers, dads knowing, the guys are also doing that as well. So why do we always focus on the sisters when it's the guys messaging these girls? So many pervy men out there.
No doubt.
So let's talk about that as well.
No doubt. It boils down to who's the fair agenda, right? I can walk in my shorts midnight. Nobody's going to say nothing to me. Like I've done that, to be honest with you. I've done that in the past.
With your hat.
Exactly. With my hat on, just my shorts, I could do that. Now, we have to look. Layth al-zakarak al-untha. The man is not like the woman.
Speak English, bro.
Right? So exactly. I translated that. The basic principle that the man is not like the woman, right? So you try, my sister, to do what men do, and you'd find a very different reaction, and we're biologically not the same. Right? So in essence, there's a greater harm that is, you're at risk in terms of when you're going out, whatever it is, especially online. Our makeup as well, like women love what they hear. They're easily duped into. If you read The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, he'll talk to you about how, women are essentially easier to kind of manipulate through words, and you've got incredible kind of players, you can say, historically speaking, that weren't good looking. They weren't 6 foot, they didn't have six pack, they didn't have a six figures or whatever it is. They just had the gift of the gab. Now, if you're susceptible to this as a woman, it is essential, I say critical, for you to have a brother. It could be an imam if you're a reaver or whatever it is critical for you to have that on your side when you're going through this absolute minefield of finding a good brother.
Right. So in terms of that whole thing about women being different to men and the way that they see the world. So you've got books that were like bestsellers, like Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Today, those books in the work world are like, what is that? But they were books of the 80s and 90s that people read, respected that men and women are different. And now it's like this whole movement. So what's your take on like the whole feminism movement, the red pill movement, and how is that affecting people getting married or not getting married?
It's interesting now, alhamdulillah. I think the discourse online, and I'm sure Dr. Deen, you're more privy to it than even I am, as somebody who's been getting loads of DMs and stuff, is that we started off with this kind of feminist narrative, right? Then the red pill came about as an absolute counter to that, right? And almost like diametrically opposed, and almost like an emotional outcry, no, men, we want to be masculine. And then now, alhamdulillah, we're talking about something called the green pill. Allahu a'lam what that really means. That's being developed over time. But the idea is that Islam is a beautiful balance between these two. Right. Where, it's a deen al-wasit. What does that mean in English? It is the religion, the way of life that is in between. Right in the middle of these extremes, you've got Islam that... And by the way, for those who aren't traditionally minded like myself, I'm a bit of a, traditional mindset. Islam caters for you. Islam caters for a woman that wishes to be the breadwinner as well. But realize that Islam hints towards the man having the responsibility, the qawwam, being the person responsible, and only having a lever.
Are these men responsible who are sitting on PlayStations after work, playing games for 4 hours? I get sisters messaging me, my husband is playing 4 hours of PlayStation and the kids are just sitting there getting bored. Dad's playing his games.
Exactly.
Is that a man? So what's a red pill? What's a man? How do you define a man today?
How you define a man, it's interesting. The Islamic narrative talks about a man in various things, and it's not what you'd assume to be. Right. It's a person who has a wajhut taliq. What does that mean? A smiling face, a good character, character. It's almost talking about those things that red pill doesn't talk about.
Yeah.
So balancing that with the ability to look after your family, right? Because realizing that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullukum ra'in," all of you are shepherds. All of you have a flock, and for the man, the entire family is his flock. Is he responsible? Is he kicking PlayStation, FIFA, whatever it is for 4 hours a day? That is not an idea of responsibility.
So where did we get to this red pill movement? Like, what does it mean to be a red pill follower?
Yeah, essentially, as you'd find if you look online, it comes from the Matrix, right? The idea if you take the red pill, then you unplug yourself. And arguably, I'll say Islam is the ultimate red pill. Right. It plugs you out. It's almost like the allegory of the cave of Plato when he talks about how, everybody's looking at these shadows and believing this to be the reality, and all it takes is for you to be unchained from that to look and realize that there's puppeteers behind you. Islam tells us all of this in a beautiful fashion. All we have to do in a simple means is to adopt the prophetic example, which is, by the way, an example of shedding and dispelling toxic masculinity as well.
Sure, you're going to go to a break, Malik. But in terms of that, hold that thought about red pill and what red pill means in terms of like getting men to not feel that they're missing out because of feminism is overpowering them, or they're feeling like they're not getting their rights or their voice. We're just going to go to a break. This is Real Talk with Dr. Deen. See you after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Real Talk with Dr. Deen. So Malik, we're talking about men and women, the struggles of marriage. So tell me a bit about those DMs. So what kind of messages? Let's talk about the British women. What were the messages like?
What was really interesting is through this journey of, as you said, virality, right? I almost became this watering hole, digital watering hole, where people gather. Singletons were gathering there, right? And in particular, they were airing their frustrations to me, right? Seeing as somebody who is going on this journey of finding somebody, and also connected to all these different,
How was it water hole? Like individual, or there was a group?
So what I would say is that I, as a page, as an Instagram page, as a Twitter page, as a Facebook handle, became this watering hole to singletons, right? So I was getting very interesting DMs and a lot of alarming DMs as well. So as an example, women mainly, but also men, frustrated so much with the fact that they're not able to match somebody. It's like, bro, I'm 6 foot, I've got a six pack, this and whatever it is, or sisters, like I'm this good looking, I'm cooking all that, but I can't find a man. What is it? And almost kind of coming in from an aspect of like, I don't want to die alone, fear mindset. And my job, well, I realized it wasn't my job, but it became my job to instill more of an abundance mindset, a growth mindset, realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has the keys to the hereafter and this dunya. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and work towards it, and don't come from a space of I deserve X, Y, Z. You don't deserve anything in life.
Exactly. The concept of deserve is un-Islamic.
Exactly.
It's this entitled mentality.
Exactly.
If you say I deserve something, if I say I deserve a holiday to Mauritius, I've decided what Allah should give me. I have no right to do that.
Exactly.
When this mentality of entitlement is a disaster, right?
Exactly.
So what were the complaints of the sisters?
So the sisters were talking about exactly what you mentioned earlier on, Dr. Deen. Pervy brothers, brothers who kind of show
even with
face.
The beards and everything, the lectures. I don't know why Muslim men are so pervy. I don't get it. Like, what's going on?
It's almost like
hypersexualized. That's the word.
Hypersexualization. I was reading something yesterday about how the top, if I can say the P word of watching.
Say anything.
What the highest number of kind of porn abusers, I'm going to call it, not viewers, abusers. They abuse themselves. Is from Muslim countries. The top 6 out of those 8 countries are Muslim.
But we don't like talking about Muslim issues. We're in denial. We always on the defensive.
It's the forbidden fruit concept. If spirituality isn't embedded into you as a person, you're always going to be attracted to forbidden fruit more so than your kuffar counterparts.
In terms of like our opinion about a lot of the feedback we get from women about men being pervy, I mean, that's just our thoughts on that and experiences. But what, like we don't have the stats on that, but it's like personal experiences. What do you think is like the main complaints from the sisters about struggles to get married, and what the main complaints from brothers about struggles to get married?
What I'll do is I'll look at complaints, but I'm a solution-orientated brother, so I want to give you a solution as well. So complaints about brothers having this, having a wrong intention towards you. Simple solution: having a wali or a brother present if you can, inshallah ta'ala. That's probably one of the greatest complaints. Is like, oh, this brother wasn't interested. And I'm actually speaking to sisters who are divorcees, who have 2 kids, maybe 1 kid, whatever it is, late 30s, and young sisters, 18, 19, never been married before, and they're complaining about this kind of stuff as well. So it's very simple. Khalwa, meaning seclusion, is not permitted for you. So what you need to do is, at the very least, if you're talking to somebody, WhatsApp, Telegram, have a third person present, even if that's another friend or a sister.
Right. And what the blockers for the sisters in getting married? Is it their mentality? Is it the guys? Is it a bit of everything? What's blocking?
What was interesting, so I run a group on Telegram whereby they've got single sisters, and I'm presenting to them profiles of brothers, right? And what's interesting, there was a dialogue between a sister who's about 36 and there was a sister who's 18. And the older sister said to the younger one, look, there's a really good profile, you should go for it. And the sister said, you know what, I'm not going to compromise, he's not that good looking. And the sister said to her, height isn't everything. Being lean isn't everything. And she's like, you know what, for me it is. And what happens is, look, I have seen this happen so many times, both men and women. It's this graph. It's like this, illusion of like, I'm so amazing, right? In my prime, whatever that prime is, define it. And I want the best possible, and I overlook very important aspects which only come through realization of this journey. And I can say that about myself. Initially focusing more on looks, focusing more on style or the way the person speaks, to then realizing that there's so much more tangible things. Is this woman or is this brother, are they marriage material? Are they father or mother material? That's are we looking
for perfection in this life? And is that part of the issue?
Look, I call it the plugged in paradox. For the first time in history, you've got people, you could be in the Sahara Desert. All you need is a cable, bro. All you need is a Wi-Fi connection, and you've got access to viewing the most gorgeous women and most handsome men in history that you'd never see. And that warps your perception of what is reality available to you, even if it's just a bit. So you're no longer going to be wanting average Abdullah, who mashallah ta'ala is a good brother, praises five times salah. Now you want some extreme brother, I don't know, Latif.
It's a fantasy, isn't it?
Exactly.
But also, this is the first generation in the whole Ummah's history where we can now say in every home, there's an unmarried brother or sister or a divorcee or someone who's never going to get married. That's the first time it's ever happened in our history. If you think about it that way, that this is the first, we completely changed our social dynamic. And what we got now is a crisis that no one really talks about in terms of like the solutions, like hear out the sisters, hear out the brothers saying women, they're too strong in their feminism. And we're talking about like the fourth wave of feminism. So this is like the 2008 onwards feminism, the madness of that. We're not talking about the right to vote in the 1800s. We're not talking about even the 60s revolution. Like, we're talking about women who just want to be men, literally. Exactly like a man, which is not what they're meant to do. But there is a reaction to that now. People are now realizing, and I'm seeing on both sides there are sensible people who are inshallah coming back to the right way, and even asking for like arranged marriages.
Exactly.
And why do you think people are asking for arranged marriages?
It's interesting, right? Because arranged marriage takes out the guessing and takes out the pain and anguish. These are real words that describe the journey. And it talks about, your instant gratification tied to your notifications on these apps and on these websites. Arranged marriage takes out all of that. And there was a report by UN Women I looked at, and it talked about how much more successful arranged marriages are amongst the Indian diaspora and other Asian diasporas in the Americas, in the USA, compared to what they call the opposite, which is a love marriage, which is essentially you going out yourself, potentially being infatuated by somebody, overlooking what is logical evaluation and vetting of an individual. So I would say, there's a hadith that there's nothing better for two people that love each other than marriage. But you need to combine that emotional element with your logical, rational brain, right? And that's what arranged marriage presents. And I would say to everybody, fine, you like somebody, you're infatuated by them and how they are. You now need to get them through a vetting process, and it has to be both ways. So
that goes on to a really interesting point about interracial marriages. So I'm finding the youth, they really like the idea of interracial marriages. A lot of it is just a fantasy, or it's really cool. Oh, I'd like a sister from here, a brother from here.
Fetishism.
And it's not, and they're rejecting their own culture. Even though in Islam, it's fine to marry from your own people as well. And the thing is, it's fine to marry any other race. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
But don't do it because it's cool, because it's trendy. You want to show off your, So do it for the right reasons. Don't do an interracial marriage because you want to look different down the high street.
Exactly.
Yeah, but do it because it's the right person.
100%.
And the people are not going down. A lot of people don't do that. Or we get this trend where they're marrying people that are not of the faith, but they're not actually converting. They're just ticking the box just so that they can be, in
some
that.
horror stories, Dr. Deen, I've come across. You can find this on Reddit, whereby sisters who essentially got married to a brother, thinking that they're Muslim, new Muslim reverts, the entire family rejected this person. This is where vetting comes in. Woman sticking with her emotional brain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given her women a greater sense of emotional intelligence than us, than men, right? And she's thinking with the emotional intelligence and not the logical intelligence. What happens, and this has happened to two sisters just on Reddit recently, the brother ended up being not a Muslim, just somebody who fetishizes Muslim women. And not only that, but wait for this, Dr. Deen, live streams these women performing sexual acts upon them and getting money from that, and then realizing too late down the road that this person took me for advantage. So that's the risk here. That's the risk of not vetting and fetishizing. And it goes both ways for sisters that feel like this brother only likes me because I'm certain ethnicity, certain bodily feature.
There's like a hijabi fetish and stuff like that, crazy stuff like that.
There's a niqabi fetish as well. Allah.
But the thing that's really interesting about the whole marriages with other nationalities and that, because it's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and it's a beautiful thing. But when cultures clash as well, or there is no relationship between the two families, now a lot of youth, they don't even care what their parents think. It used to be like you do whatever your parents said and that was wrong, and now it's the other extreme where they don't even ask or consult their parents. How many times parents have come up to me and said they don't even tell us who they're marrying? They say, I'm marrying this person, like it, love it, hate it, I don't care, I'm marrying this person. And parents say, look, I'm giving you advice, we've got life experience.
It's a sad thing. Now, in what I do for a profession is startup coaching, right? Executive business coaching. And there's a term that I kind of coined from my days in audit. It's called CAKE. Cumulative awareness, knowledge, and experience. For you as a young woman or a young man, you need to look in the room. Like I know you, Dr. Deen, with all being, with all set, being 100%, you're the brother with the cake in this room right now. You're the brother that's got, no, mashallah, you've got the cumulative awareness, knowledge, and experience. And I look to you as an older brother that I'm inspired by. So similarly, for brothers and sisters seeking knowledge, wallahi, your parents have cake that you don't have in your 20 years or 30 years of existence. And they have all that knowledge that may not be articulated in a way that you love. May be articulated like a slap in your face. But it is within their gut lining, those neurons that have seen life, which you haven't. And if you don't leverage that, you're losing out.
Even if mom and dad are angry with it, they still love you. And what else people don't realize, even a harsh dad should never be harsh, especially with your daughter, should be loving. But he still loves you.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that people need to realize. A family is still family.
Again,
so we're going to go to a break. Malik, we'll be back. This is Real Talk with Dr. Deen. We'll see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Real Talk with Dr. Deen. Malik, so we're talking about another topic before we started, misyar, right? So what is this thing? There are career women. Some of them are earning more than the men. They're in corporate jobs, businesses, and they want a husband, but a part-time husband. So what's this? There's a lot of debate online. And the problem with online is everyone's a sheikh. Everyone knows everything, right?
Exactly.
Everyone's got an opinion. And it's a really hard place, especially TikTok. So what is the game with the whole misyar thing? What is misyar first?
Very interesting. So as a disclaimer, as you rightly mentioned, I'm not a sheikh. You need to, anything related to the deen, marriage is a part of deen. You need to go to somebody of knowledge to tell you, is this right? Not only if this is right generally, but for your specific scenario, you need somebody to go to that, for example, the Islamic Council of Europe, or whatever it is, your local imam that you trust and know that follows the sunnah, inshallah ta'ala. So in terms of misyar, it is essentially giving up the rights. The woman giving up her rights. It's not to be misconstrued with the idea of muta', which is something according to Ahl Sunnah, according to the Sunnis, has been abrogated completely. Sorry, nasikh mansukh. It's been abrogated completely. Whereas misyar essentially is a valid nikah contract according to the scholars. If you look at it from intrinsically is something that is halal. However, what's interesting to note is even the scholars who permitted it initially, they later on made it prohibited. Why? Because if it becomes a phenomenon that is spread, which is in a male-driven society, of course, you know, we are people of shahwa, of desires, and Islam caters to those desires, but this can become extremely problematic when women start giving up their rights and just allow themselves to be used this way. Yeah. So therefore, what happens is in this, and we've got a case for this, obviously, one of the Prophet ﷺ's wives gave up her rights to a knight and gave that to Aisha radiallahu anha. So from that set the precedence of this. However, like I said, it is very, very tricky, a slippery slope. You don't want to, you know, make this, you don't want to normalize this basically. Okay,
I know a sister, right? She's worth about 4 million.
Yeah.
And literally she said, I can't get married because the man's going to want my money. Right? So does she go to Misyar, or I said, look, sister, marry your money then. Because you don't want to get married because you're worried about your money, but you can't live your life like that.
Exactly.
You can't live in fear because I'm worth 4 million. The man's going to want, why do you assume he wants your money?
I think before, and of course, Misyar may be a solution for her in the case of her fulfilling her physical, you know, needs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, allows you to fulfill. But it's obviously, as you said, diagnosing this money mindset. What is your relationship with money? What is your relationship with the opposite gender? What are those things growing up from the ages of 0 to 7, 7 to 14, when your Eid was developing? What were you looking, what was your example of a man? And what was that man, for example, emotionally available or not? Dealing with that deep trauma before you latch it on with a little bit of misyar to cure yourself. No, we want to go deep, inshallah. That's what my advice is. But I've come across scenarios whereby sisters, subhanallah, maybe it's probably the best for them to go down this route, but those are the exception. And definitely, and by the way, I say definitely twice. Why? Because some people have seen me promote a certain misyar kind of service, but I always caveat with, no, akhi, this is only for that sister in particular. Maybe she's had, 12 children from 4 different baby fathers and stuff like that, and she needs something halal. And this is probably a very bad solution to an even worse problem of zina. If it's the case, making it very clear between zina, that is prohibited sexual intercourse, and misyar, then of course no sane person, even a father, a wali, would say yes to zina. That's what I'm positing here.
So in terms of also the age crisis, is 30 like a warning sign? Red sirens should go off at 30 if you're not married by 30.
So what's interesting is, again, online you see various sisters, and sisters sometimes are the worst advisors, particularly older sisters who are single, advising younger sisters, oh sister, don't worry about this, you're only 18. SubhanAllah, to quote one of the scholars that I follow, SubhanAllah, he mentions 18, this woman's already in her prime, like the word was like a spinster, you can say, like she's already there, because by that age, if you're not looking, you're not following the right courses. This is what, but however, at the same time, I say within the same breath, if you are 30, sister, if you are 40, you shouldn't lose hope. Right, inshallah ta'ala. However, if you talk about brothers, doing the sunnah, you, sister, should also follow the sunnah. There's so many options available to you, including polygyny. And you say yes to brothers marrying widows and brothers marrying older women. How about you, sister, entertaining even just for a moment this beautiful sunnah, if it is done properly? And by the way, I say that in the majority of cases in the UK, it's probably not done according to the sunnah. People are on the dole or whatever it is. But if it's done accordingly, it is a beautiful sunnah.
So many of these guys who have secret second wives,
no doubt,
and they're sitting on benefits. They got their jubbahs on all day long, got miswaks in their mouth. I'm generalizing, but these are scenarios I've seen.
This is where the scholars say it's haram for a man to take a woman when he can't afford it.
In the Arab countries where some people have a lot of wealth, they find it easy to do this, to have another wife. But in terms of that whole scenario with sisters and brothers, it's the same with the brothers though. I see brothers who are over 30, 35, 40. And it's about, I think the prime is a really important point here. You can get married at 50, but that's like, I give the example, you can marry at 30, 40, 50, 60. But what's the prime age of a sportsman, right?
Exactly.
It's 18, 20, right?
100%.
You can be a footballer at 45. You're not going to do very well in that field. Marriage is the same. You want to be married when you're young, when you've got the sexual energy.
Exactly.
You've got that drive, you've got the passion.
100%.
That's the enjoyment of marriage. Because
100%.
let's be real. People want to get married for sex as one of the main factors, other companionship and all the rest. But sex as a young person, that is a really prime reason to get married, right? So why would you not do that in your prime?
Exactly.
Or you want to go out and commit, the zina. So all these scenarios like at uni, what happens with Muslim youth.
Allah Mustaan.
It's a madness that nobody wants to talk about. So when I release stats at MCB, like, oh, this isn't true. How can this be true about astaghfirullah? I got tweets like this is superstition that Muslim youth are having sex.
Wow.
And they're smoking weed and drinking. Go to any uni in this country, go to the bars, Muslim youth are drinking.
Yeah.
Not all of them, obviously. But there's complete denial of this.
It's denial. And you're just hurting yourselves as a community by denying the reality.
Right.
And in fact, you have to stare it right in the face. Not only address it, but give a halal solution.
Yeah.
Right. And there was a halal solution that brother Imran, mashallah ta'ala, Dawam, he used to be called, but now he's Imran ibn Masud. He talks about this. It's called nikah and chill. So if you can't afford it, wherever you are as a young man, and we talk about affording, of course, is very important. Let's say you can't afford it, but your desires are so strong, mashallah, young guy, high on testosterone, high whatever, is in a sister who's very, needs a companion. There's a nikah and chill. You stay at your respective parents' homes, but then you've got a nikah. You're like a halal boyfriend, halal girlfriend situation, essentially. So that's also a positive thing that people can implement.
Yeah. How do you think the situation is in terms of with the Muslim youth and the double life? What does that look like? What is going on?
It's an interesting thing. Again, I relate this to the plugged in paradox. You've got sisters, family friends, maybe, that we know, like little, angels. You look at maybe they're like 14 and you've seen them grow up. However, as soon as then they hide their TikTok from you. But as soon as you've seen them on TikTok, you're like, different this sister's a completely different person.
Different. Brothers, you keep saying sisters. What about brothers, bro?
Okay, exactly. So our heart goes to sisters and stuff like that, but brothers as well. Even probably even worse. They're part of gangs, and they're stabbing and they're talking about all this type of stuff. Probably even worse.
Yeah.
100%.
So that double life, I call it a triple life. So I said there's one online. Yeah. One at college, uni, whatever, and then masjid. One with the masjid and the community. So like a triple life. But it's a real struggle, right? Because I say all Muslims in our community, like this is my thought, they're all living a double life. Because let me give you an example. Let's say me and you go to the mosque, right? We go to a lecture. Would you ever say in that lecture hall, you've just watched Avengers? You astaghfirullah, how can you say it? So we live a fake life where we pretend, because it's not something you're meant to tell people, or that you watch the latest Fast and Furious, or you know who Kim Kardashian is. It's like no astaghfirullah. So we, even the adults, live this double life because we grew up like that, hiding things from our parents. And now the kids, what do we expect from them? Unless we're open, this is why it's called Real Talk. Let's talk about these things openly. It's the only way, like you said, we can address them.
I think with respect, Dr. Deen, I think we misconstrue this notion of double third lives with the idea of, as Ali radiallahu anh said quite beautifully, he said, address the people with what they're used to.
Yeah.
So as an example, I'm not going to talk about Avengers with my grandfather, and I'm not going to talk about football with the imam of the masjid. However, when we're talking about this hypocrisy, it is the fact that your internal isn't like your external. This is how the scholars talk about it, right? And we, as long as within ourselves, right? And in particular, when we talk about doing good deeds, our secret deeds are the same or as much as our external deeds. That's a tick for you in terms of you, inshallah, not being hypocritical. But then when it comes to, I think when it comes to a double life and stuff like that, in my perspective, I may be wrong, the real guilt trip is when you do bad deeds, right? So cutting those off completely, because I was asked a question when I did a stand-up comedy 9-week course, and I've done theatre before as well, and the person asked me, is like, Muhammad, who are you? And that's why I kind of left off theatre, because some of the scholars mentioned you are becoming somebody that you're not. Because when you adopt a certain persona, you've got different personas. But that's where the
double life comes in. What I mean by that, you just said is not right, it's not Islamic to be in theatre. We all watch Netflix. So how, this is what I can't reconcile. We say one thing, we do something else. Everybody watches blockbuster films, cartoons, Netflix, yet we say astaghfirullah. So how do we reconcile that?
We all need to have a framework which we adopt in terms of our thinking, in terms of our adherence to the Quran and Sunnah as well, right? So for a lot of us, they would say, for example, there's a difference of opinion on this, right? I think another scholar mentions, as long as it's good, you can watch something like, you know, that is relating to the Deen and it's kind of acted out and so there's nothing wrong with that at all. I myself, there's a concept why
Stranger
I left
Things
that.
Not related to the Deen.
If it's mubah or like something that is good. I'm not advocating for watching anything, right? I would just clear that as well.
We're going to wrap it up, going to another break.
No worries.
This is Real Talk with Dr. Deen. Amazing talk with Malik. Don't go anywhere. See you after the break. Welcome back to Real Talk with Dr. Deen. So Malik, what is the key to building a brand? So I'm talking about entrepreneurship, making money, all those Kickstarter projects. You're really in that space. So let's talk about first, like, what does it take to build a business and a brand?
Interesting question. I think for the first time now, you've got this creator kind of entrepreneurs who are one person brands who are just absolutely killing it. We're talking about, it's not unusual for me to say that a creator who's got a YouTube platform or killing it in just two spaces, so let's say LinkedIn and Twitter, YouTube or TikTok, to make 100,000
You mean Stephen Bartlett,
these guys,
Tate, all these people have got their own brands,
personal brands,
individuals,
They've got businesses, but they've also got personal brands. I think there's a person called Matt H. Gray who used to have, you know, a brand in cannabis, right, for example, who then created his own personal brand. What you're able to do is create this kind of system of like low ticket. What I mean by low ticket is like a very cheap product. You bring people into your ecosystem. It's an incredible place to be right now online. And I think, you know, even those who have a specific niche, whatever that is, whatever your calling is in life, you can develop your own kind of brand online. And you asked as to how to do that is to be authentic. Don't try to be like everybody else. I'm a strong believer that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given everybody a uniqueness, a unique power, unique calling, and all it takes for you is to sit with yourself. Maybe it's in the shower. A shower does a wonderful thing of eliciting thoughts, you know, if there's theta waves. Exactly. Very, very good point. Now, attention distraction. Now, this is where moments, you talk about the phone, right? I think the key that when I talk about the phone, I talk about this concept called productive procrastination. The idea of not doing anything, the art of not doing anything, like the Japanese call it, that's when ideas come to us. That's when it all makes sense. That's when the penny drops. That's when these jigsaw puzzles come together, right? So having more moments like that in the shower or wherever you're walking as well, you're allowing the left and right lobe of your mind to kind of come together when you're walking. That's when you're going to realize, okay, I should do this. Okay, I should do that. And for me, subhanAllah, recently, a penny drop for me is like, man, I've worked as an education kind of, you know, co-founder of a Muslim edtech company. I've worked in faith education. Why not develop a community? And alhamdulillah, now I'm working on developing that. So similarly, I would say to people, have more times like this and seek counsel with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do I mean by that? Sincerely make dua, lift your hands, raise your hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, say, Allah, guide me, like we do, you know, guide us to the right path. And that inspiration that will come to you will be an incredible thing. So sincerity is the one thing. And then content, like being consistent. The word is adwam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us that the best actions are those consistent. So be consistent in whatever you do and be willing to pivot. And the last thing, I'll say three things I mentioned. The last one is look at life as an experiment. Don't be so attached to it like your baby, like this brand, oh, it's my everything. No. I've run for the last 3-4 years programs to accelerate startups, right? They're called incubators and accelerators. The best startup founders or entrepreneurs are those that aren't so glued and wedded to their solution and look at it more like a science project, like an experiment, and they're able to pivot.
So what I find is people are either following motivational sort of these are called scams to entrepreneurs who sell these courses, tell you you're going to be a millionaire overnight, come to this course, buy, and it's all like this fuzzy buzzwords, but there's no actual practical implication how to run a business. It's just like, you're great, you can be great, you can, all that. There's that. The other one is people don't know what kind of journey, how hard it is. And then the third one is people saying, if you go on social media, you'll see people saying, I did it. I'm amazing. I made $1 million. My net worth, I made 20 million. Nobody makes a penny without Allah. Honestly, anybody who's achieved anything, even if it's Bill Gates, anyone's achieved wealth of any amount is because of Allah. Yes, they put the hard work in. That's essential. But the circumstances that led them there was from Allah. They met the right person. They grew up in the right family. They had the connections. Allah linked them to the right connections. All of that, people are taking credit for their net worth now, and they don't attribute God, Allah to any of it. And this is like this ego worship now, that I am amazing, I did it. There's no recognition for the help of the circumstances, which is Allah. And there's also this issue where we got people who are becoming entrepreneurs, and then they're sort of bragging about how they are and everyone else, and they're the exception of the exception, because even if you work hard all your life, most likely you'll make a good income, but it's those unique circumstances that Allah creates that gets you to the next level.
It's interesting. You raised quite a few very interesting points here. The thing that came to my mind, the neurons that you wired in my mind that were firing, was around our relationship with money to begin with. A lot of us look at money, unfortunately, it's more of a Judeo-Christian concept than a Muslim one. That money's either the money's the root of all evil, or it's like the objective completely. Whereas for us, subhanAllah, it's more of an amplifier. As Ibn Taymiyyah says, it's like a bridge. It's like a toilet, rather. You use it, right? And it can be a means of great khair or great goodness for you, or it can be a means of disaster for you. So getting your money mindset right, I think that's the first thing, and realizing motivation is a myth. There's a book called The Motivation Myth. What we mean by that is that you seeking your dopamine shots by this motivation speaker, that's the wrong place to look at it. You need to seek your dopamine shot, your thrill from the actual work itself. That's intrinsic motivation. When you are able to sit down in a spot, and how many of us can't even sit for more than an hour? We can't sit down. Once you're able to do that, then you put your mind to something, then you're ticking all the boxes, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's door of blessings will open to only the ones who work hard.
I'm a big fan of people not opening these dessert parlors and chai wallas and chai. Everyone copies everyone else, and one high street now you've got like 4 chai shops. How many are you going to do? Use your brain, do something different. People just want to copy everyone else. First it was dessert parlors, now it's chai, next it'll be something else. Everyone will be opening on the same high street. Mr. Chai. Exactly. So what we need to do is get into tech startups, Uber, Airbnb. Why don't people think of that? You're the guy in that space. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think what it is that tech equals scale. That's what it is. So first, develop a solution to anything that is mandrolic, that is manual, as the founder of Y Combinator, which is one of the most famous incubators in the world, said. Then you need to scale it. Tech allows you to do that, right? But you mentioned tech, right? I would love Muslims to be the first in these new trending spaces. AI, everyone knows it's growing, but what about space technology, for example? This is something that's going to be an absolute gold mine, according to the founder, one of the directors of Metalysis, which is a space tech company. But yes, tech, essentially every idea that you've got, inshallah ta'ala, there's a way for tech to be embedded in it, for it to scale as well. Even when it comes to catering, for example, there was a really good entrepreneur I came across. He's able to scale his cupcake company by using tech.
Right. I'm in the tech space as well, and what I realize is people don't see, because with tech, and I know, it takes a long time to even gain that traction following. Whereas people see, I open a restaurant, people might walk in straight away. So it's like that gratification of instant gratification, that quick gain. Whereas the long game is tech. It's not easy to set up a successful tech company or an app, but it takes a lot, and it's high risk, high gain, right? Because you might not make a penny from it, you may, and you never know, but you got to keep trying.
Life-changing money is equity. That's what I like to say. So for example, I could charge for my startup consultancy £400 per session, whatever it is. But if I get 1% equity from which is what I want to do, inshallah ta'ala, in the longer term, that is life-changing money. That is something that could then go towards building hospitals or whatever it is in the world, inshallah ta'ala. And there's a book that I'll out, probably, plug brothers that I know, IFG, Islamic Finance Guru, they in their introduction, they wrote about how this disparity between Muslim wealth and non-Muslim wealth, right? And how it's very important for us as agents of change, as vicegerents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to become wealthy, to help each other become wealthy. We can learn a lot from our Jewish cousins in terms of how they've done this, and bridge that gaps, because we are intrinsically motivated for effective altruism. And I say effective altruism, that is not just, altruism is, giving money for charities, not just emotional pledging here, Al-Aqsa one day, Kashmir the other. No, persistent, calculated altruism that is going to impact Muslims and impact the world at large, not just Muslims, and doing so together as a community.
Malik, we're going to wrap up. I want 3 things you've learned in life lessons that you can tell the audience.
Number one, first and foremost, that wraps up everything that I've said, is I'm going to say the Arabic then translate it. Rasulullah, he said, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib aw 'abir as-sabil." Be in this world like you are a stranger or just a traveler on the path. This is incredibly paradigm shifting, mind shifting advice if we were to understand what Rasulullah is teaching us and the implications of that from a mindset. And I say, embody the stranger, embody the traveler in a mindset. You become confident within yourself. All these things we talked about double personality. Confidence is the key here. So you're being shifted in so many directions because you lack that confidence, you lack that identity. If we identify ourselves as Muslims who are strangers, who are very strange, like my beard is a bit strange on the tube, my hijab is strange on the tube, and then on top of that, a real stranger is not attached to anything in life, and that goes,
then we shouldn't make millions, right?
This is the thing. We become detached from the outcome and we attach only ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. Anything that comes of khair, anything that comes of good is from Him, Jalla Jalaluh. And everything that we do it for Allah's sake, but we leave the outcome to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the embodiment of the stranger.
What have you learned from your mistakes in life?
I've learned that that all of the sons of Adam are khata'in, they are all mistake makers, right? And the best of those are that turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turn to Allah. That's the second thing that I'd like to say. Three things. Always turn to Allah for not only just for forgiveness, but for inspiration, right? When you put your head, and this is
30
the thing,
seconds.
30 seconds. My last thing this relates to, and this is something that I would want on my wasiyah, on my will, if I were to die today. My one message to people is like, when you put your head onto the ground and you make sincere dua, wallahi, miracles will happen. I've seen people lifted, their spiritual disease, mental health, everything lifts from you with the sincere dua and a tear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the ground.
And even in the search for marriage, if you ask Allah for a spouse, Allah will provide
Inshallah,
it. You just put the effort and du'as in. That's what people do. Thank you so much, Malik. I'll see you again on my next podcast.
Inshallah.
Thank you for being such an inspiration. Allah bless you, Malik. That was Malik. This is Real Talk with Dr. Deen. Thank you so much for joining. See you on the next one.